I'm film critic and Oz historian Ryan J. And September marks the glorious return of Broadway performances for the first time since the pandemic shutdown. To celebrate the occasion, PBS will air Wicked in Concert, a musical celebration of the iconic Broadway score. Co-hosted by the show's original stars, Kristen and Adina Menzel, it was filmed across several theaters in New York, LA, and Washington, D.C., with reimagined, never-before-heard musical arrangements created just for this broadcast, performed by stars from stage and screen. I'm thrillified to introduce Luke Frazier, the show's musical director and conductor, along with Robert Pullen, executive producer and co-founder of Nouveau Productions. Their list of credits are so impressive. They've worked with the biggest celebrities in the most prestigious locations in the world. Luke and Robert, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
So how did this show come about?
Basically, PBS, who we had been working with quite a bit, of course, during COVID, and actually prior to that, we've had many shows with PBS, but during COVID, I just said, hey, we're having so much fun with you all. Is there anything that we can do for you? Is there some type of show that you wished you had had that you had not been able to get before? And emphatically, there was only one answer, and that was Wicked. They have wanted to do Wicked. They wanted to have a presence of Wicked on PBS for literally, I believe now 11 years. But I said we'd give it a shot. And Luke and I both know Stephen Schwartz quite well, and he's a good friend. And so we gave him a ring, and he very graciously agreed to lend the music and the score to us, reimagined by Luke. And the rest is history.
It's insane. I think everyone is so excited to see it. I normally, before doing an interview like this, would have had the chance to screen, and that would inform some of my questions. So this is purely promotional. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm going to ask you some questions about it. But before we get to the specifics, what makes this Wicked in Concert special to you? When you've worked with the biggest stars in the greatest locations for the greatest events, what's spectacular and special and unique about this program?
Well, for me, was the chance to take music that so many people around the world know. I mean, how many of us have listened to that soundtrack more times than we care to admit?
Right.
And what I think is important is that, this was a chance to take this music that we all know and love, and the original will always be in our hearts near and dear, but it's fun to just make it fresh. And so what's so special to me is that mix of old and new. It's preserving an American classic with bringing it to new generations through new voices, people who've never sung this score before, which is really an equally exciting part. So many artists I work with have either done the piece I'm working with them on or have learned it just for that, but are very familiar. And with these folks, they really took a chance and said, I love the musical Wicked and I want to get into it. And so it's all these interesting facets combined make it exciting to me artistically.
And that was, by the way, one of the mandates, is that no one in the show could have appeared in Wicked prior. So, of course, with Adina and Kristen being the exceptions. So therefore, we were really saying to each of these artists, what would you like to do? I remember when Luke was talking to Jennifer Nettles, just trying to re-envision the piece and be able to work on that. And any of the other artists, they all did brand new things that they had never done before. And I remember the call to Rita Moreno. She was like, you want me to do what? so just people were really, really willing to go out on a limb and sing things and do things that they would never typically be cast for.
Were stars just really clamoring to be a part of this? Or did you get to do
Yes.
it? Yeah.
Yes.
Were you turning people? You don't have to name names, but you got to turn some people down?
We did have to turn some people down. We won't name names, but I will tell you one of the difficulties we had, which is, just the nature of the beast and kind of a little bit of the behind the scenes. Luke and I would have a casting sheet of exactly the people that we wanted to be in touch with. And inevitably somebody would say yes, we'd send them the music, we're ready to go. And all of a sudden something with COVID, of course, related would actually creep up so that actually it was reopening certain bits and pieces, or maybe a TV show was back actually in a taping. So then that person would have to say, I'm so sorry, the show that I was originally contracted for is now filming again. I've got to ditch. So there was one particular role that we cast, which we will not name which one, but I'd say more than like 10 times, because each and every one of those artists was so ready to go, so committed to us.
And by the way, across all genre, that's, I will tell you,
part.
One of the things we are very committed to is diversity in this version of the show, and making sure that everyone can feel represented and seen in this production. And so every cast list for every song, and that's the other crazy thing, we weren't casting a role, we were casting a song. People that you didn't even expect would want to be in it were clamoring. So,
which is really fun.
And I can't tell you how many calls I had where, Luke, I just want to make this work. We just got to figure out how to make this work. I'm like, we have to turn it into PBS. It's on in August. So maybe next time.
Gosh, I can't even imagine. Yeah, you'll need a part 2.
That's right.
Reimagine your reimagined song.
Which is what we felt like several days of the year.
Yes.
I believe it. Do you think there's one moment for each of you that you think fans might really freak out about?
For me, I have to tell you, one of our very close friends and who, a love in our hearts is Cynthia Erivo. And she was expecting that we would be asking her to sing Defying Gravity or, one of the, No Good Deed, something like that. That was just the expectation that she assumed that we were going to ask her to do.
So let me take a guess, because it's not in the list of press released photos. And it doesn't, I haven't found yet which piece she's singing. So personally, I'm kind of hoping she sings the Nessa Rose song that was cut from the original cast recording.
You'll just have to wait and see.
Imagine.
All I can say is this much, is you'd never expect her to sing this in a million years. And I have to tell you, her words were, I feel like I'm singing the most beautiful lullaby. And it was the most incredible. And, here we are. Luke has filmed the orchestra in Washington, D.C. and chorus as well for that particular number.
That's something else. You will notice that there's not a single piece in the show that uses electronic instruments. I very intentionally wanted to make it all acoustic. That alone changes the sound of the entire score completely. Not even a keyboard in the orchestra. It's all piano.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and it's a different feel. And Stephen luckily signed off on all of it. It's one of my own personal musical moment that was really thrilling was, so I sat down with all of the music and I designed it all anew, came up with what I thought the orchestration should be, the kind of color texture differences that I wanted to make. And I fretted and fretted and fretted over really thinking through this list, because Stephen I love and is a friend. And all of a sudden it was kind of birthing it out into the world to email it to him. Yeah. And one of the most thrilling moments for me was the email back that said he loved it all. So I was a little gobsmacked when that happened. And then I would say from actual filming and shooting was working with Jennifer Nettles. We had designed an arrangement for her and she said, Luke, can I have a call? And with the orchestrator we used for that. And the three of us completely reorchestrated the whole piece and then came up with a brand new version just for her.
Right.
So it's pretty thrilling.
Now, having Kristen and Adina co-host was really clever. I think the last time they appeared together was for A Very Wicked Halloween, but they filmed their pieces separately?
They did, actually, because Adina was getting ready to go off to, I believe it was Ireland, where she is now or will be, because she's filming a movie, which I believe...
Enchanted, right?
Yeah, exactly. So she was filming a movie, so we had to get her in very quickly because we had very little time. And by the way, some of the, this is... not even just dealing with the pandemic, forget that a minute. It was with all the casting that we talked about that was churning through quite a bit. We're actually then writing a script that they are then going to speak. And once they speak and record that, that's it, right? So there are many times where we had to kind of like be a little creative, let's just say, with the scripting and things like that. So it was, Adina did it first, Kristen was second. So we just had to catch them where we could. And that was at the incredible jewel box of a space on the Upper West Side, the Triad. And so it's a beautiful Art Deco space. And Luke and I thought it really aesthetically matched the Warner Theater that we were trying to capture a lot of the performances at.
I just can't imagine, though. I know you mentioned that as a rule, no one that has previously performed in the show on stage was going to be a part of this concert, but you've got Kristen and Adina and you don't ask them to sing?
So they do sing. They do sing.
They do have a piece in the show. We can't tell you which.
Brilliant.
Okay? Right. It is in there. Don't worry.
That's all we need to know. Luke, I have to ask you, these songs are so well loved. They're so well known.
Yes.
Where do you begin to approach and changing and creating new arrangements and sounds for them?
Art always keeps evolving. And so for me, when I start thinking about these pieces, it's when I'm out gardening, it's when I'm running, it's when I'm with my trainer. And I'm thinking musically, a piece will pop into my head, and then I'll think, oh, wouldn't this be interesting if we made it sound like a 1940s dance band? Or wouldn't it be fun if we made this sound like a piece of beautiful classical chamber music? Or what if we added a very kind of earthy sounding chorus to a piece, and how that would change it completely? One of the additions I used in this entire show is I used a 12-voice choir, mostly made up of outstanding college students that I had selected via a national competition with my orchestra. So it was all of their TV debut, and you'll see them all on stage. But the interesting thing, I thought of them as yet another color in the orchestra. So kind of think back to the old Ravel or Fantasia, like the old time, that era of scoring, and you'll hear these oohs and ahs and swells, or you hear them echo words. And so all of this just kind of comes to me in those times when I'm, honestly, most of the time when I'm not thinking about it.
Mario Cantone on Wonderful.
Yes.
Is it comedic? What can you tell us about that number?
It is definitely comedic, and talk about the arrangement.
And musically, okay, so when I heard that piece, again, Joe Gray, I idolized, just love that man. And so when you're thinking about a piece that was made famous by an icon, that's even doubly,
Right.
delicate. And so I heard this piece as an old time theater, almost calliope organ. Because when you listen to the music and the nature of the piece, it's so silly and so crazy. And so we actually recorded it on a 1930s Wurlitzer theater organ. And so Mario's personality and voice, and by the way, his voice is perfection on this piece.
Glorious.
It's so good. In fact, I'm amazed if they don't steal him away and stick him on Broadway in that role.
Yeah, I remember I once attended Stephen Schwartz at the Gershwin I believe it was on a Monday night, the Yellow Brick Road Not Taken.
Yes.
I was so glad to be there. It was such an exciting evening, and Mario Cantone was there. And so it was fun. He clearly is a fan of Wicked, so it's really great to see him participate in this again.
I believe when we offered him the role, he texted immediately, and he's like, I don't care what I'm singing. He just said yes. He was like, give me the details later. Yes. So, yeah. Which I thought was so incredible. And he approached it with such discipline, and wanted to get every single note and aspect.
He's a consummate artist.
Incredible artist.
One of the things we haven't mentioned yet that was also very exciting and personally exciting to me is the director of the show, Bjork Lee. The upper echelon of Broadway royalty includes Bjork Lee. Her very first show as a child she was in the original King and I.
Stop.
Yes, original.
As a little girl.
As a little girl, and remembers Yul Brynner vividly. And then all the way through, and then of course, original company of Chorus Line. Now she directs Chorus Line around the world, but this woman is the history of Broadway. And so what she loved was to bring her perspective as someone who's seen it all from King and I until today. She brought that to this musical and brought such a fresh approach, brilliant staging. Obviously when you do a musical version, first off, I refuse to do anything where actors just stand in front of an orchestra and sing. No, thanks. Been done, never again. Not on my watch.
You mentioned also how proud you are of and how intentionally you were in casting an inclusive cast. Wicked has led the way already in some ways on Broadway with Brittany Johnson as Glinda, and we see it with Queen Latifah as the Wiz in The Wiz Live, switching gender roles. I love that you brought Alex Newell in for Popular. Yes. I'm sure that's got to be a highlight. What can you tell me about that reimagining?
Ooh. So, all right, there is a little backstory again. When I was in high school and in college was when Wicked came out and really hit its first popularity. Not as young as I used to be, folks. But so anyway, I played that for so many people. I played Popular. I can't tell you how many singers wanted to sing that song in music school, or after lessons and practice was done, they just wanted to sing it because it was so cool.
Sure.
But I began thinking, how many pianists around the country and around the world have sat down and played that for a singer? So I thought, oh my God, why don't I pay homage in my own little way to all the pianists who have played this piece? So what I did is I brought 4 pianos out on stage, and the entire orchestration is just for 4 pianos and for Alex. It builds and builds and builds into this piano frenzy by the end. And the coolest part is Bjork Lee, legendary choreographer, dancer. She is dancing around these pianos with Alex, getting on the pianos, doing full leg extensions on the piano, showing Alex what she thought she should do on those moments. And it is I'm so excited.
So
and like
fun.
I said, what I really hope for viewers to take away is all of those pianists out there who've played it say, wait a minute, I know that piece, but never like this. So,
Right.
And we intentionally, by the way, we incorporated a lot of the behind the scenes footage from time to time within the show. So either right before a song happens, we may show the setup of it, and maybe right after the song happens, we show a little bit of the behind the scenes when Bjork was actually choreographing and having fun dancing around the pianos and stuff with Alex. And we also had each of the artists actually be able to speak about singing those particular songs and what it meant to them to sing this music. So, we have it's an hour and whatever, 20-ish minute show. So we had to fill it a little bit, because if you don't do a lot of reprises of each of the songs, you got a little time to fill. And we'll be featuring a few of the pieces from Out of Oz series that happened.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, yep. So that'll be a little bit of fun too, that we get to introduce the audiences to as well.
This is very different. And that's what I love about it. It gives viewers a chance to not just feel presentational, but really to be an interactive experience in its own way.
I love that. Clearly your instincts are serving you very well.
I hope so.
One of the fun things, just an interjection, when Bjork came down to Washington, D.C., and we all met as a creative team at the Warner Theater to do a walkthrough, it was palpable for them. They got goosebumps. They were actually emotional when they walked into the theater. Then Bjork pitched her artistic vision of the overture to Luke and to me. And I was so moved by what she wanted to do. She wanted to start at the marquee and visually with the camera, make her way through the theater as if you were a patron going into the theater and experiencing the stage, the theater for the very first time, post a pandemic, and just to really make people feel welcome and feel that excitement.
I love it. It's a metaphorical welcome back to the Broadway doors reopening, and so actually showing that and taking viewers in that way, I think, is really spectacular. Is the world ready for Amber Riley defying gravity?
Well, I'll tell you, every take, which was very few. The amazing thing about this entire cast is it was a cast of kind of one take people. And I can tell you, having done now a lot of television stuff, it's amazing to just have somebody come in and boom, knock it out. But we had that time and time again, and Amber is no exception. But
unbelievable,
truly
unbelievable,
truly. And my wheels immediately got turning for other things for her to sing. So you're going to see her with APO more.
She is extraordinary, extraordinary.
And I love the Oz cred there, because of course she was Ada Pearl in the Wiz Live. That song, you remember where you were the first time you ever heard it.
Don't you find that right now, more than ever, with the year we've had, with everything going on in our world as we strive to become better, more inclusive, more loving of each other, this sense of a lift, this sense of anything is possible. I mean, that's kind of one of the anthems I think we can share more and more right now. I mean, that should be playing in every pizza parlor around the country at this point, because it's just what we need to hear. And she'll let you hear it.
I believe it. Ariana DeBose and Rita Moreno. They're doing Wizard and I, so I imagine Rita is the memorable moment.
Yes,
that is correct.
Very cool.
That is correct.
I love Ariana. She is if I were casting the film version of Wicked, she's my front runner. Could you see her in that role? Who do you imagine for, the film version? Well,
I think the thing is for her, she's busy with West Side, so she's got another musical on her plate. But for sure, I met Ariana years ago when I did a concert celebrating the music of Aretha Franklin, and she was incredible in that, and really hadn't performed publicly any of the kind of Aretha rep. And absolutely she could. She's such a kind person. Her ability to take on so many styles of music so quickly is remarkable. And the way Bjork staged it, I just absolutely love. It's powerful. And Rita Moreno actually is one of the very first people that gave me a big break in my career as well. I conducted at the Kennedy Center years ago. This has been 10 years ago. And I was asked to conduct a piece with Rita Moreno and Chita Rivera, same group, on the Opera House stage. Of course, me, terrified to death at 26 or 7 years old. Something.
Unbelievable.
And she walks into rehearse with me in LA in solid snakeskin pants, a ball cap, and puts her hand on my cheek and says, "You're a baby." And then we rehearsed for 3 hours, and we've been friends for 10 years. So again, it was a great full circle moment.
Luke, let me just say, I'm looking forward to your autobiography. Because it's wow. I want to ask you who you want to play you in the story of your life. But back to Wicked.
I think we've cast. We've got our host right here.
Seriously amazing.
One thing is just interesting to think about is the fact that, because of the way that we filmed it. So, Luke and the full orchestra were at the Warner Theater doing all those pieces, right? And then as we were able to, we incorporated, of course, the artists there live with the orchestra, which of course was our first, hope and dream. And then for several of the pieces, we had to do satellite filming. So we did Cynthia Erivo in LA, we did, Rita Moreno in New York. In fact, Rita recorded her portion of her piece, she recorded in advance of Luke recording the orchestra. So therefore she had in her ear
Piano.
A keyboard playing, which of course was silent, was just in her in-ear monitor, getting her through the very top of Wizard and I. And then Luke took her voice in his in-ear monitor, and that's how he conducted to follow her to get the orchestra. So, excuse me. So all these things to be said is that I think what's going to be so cool about this is that Cynthia has never seen anything else other than her one piece. She hasn't even seen what the orchestra looks like. So it's really cool to see how all these pieces are going to come together.
One thing to note too is you will very rarely on stage see the same instrumentation. Firework did a beautiful job. So different, like the whole stage, the group of instruments on the stage is going to look different for almost every
shifting.
piece. So
it's very cool.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a recording released by PBS? Sometimes they'll do as a fundraiser, put a CD out of this concert.
That is something that we are looking into. That is definitely in our conversations with PBS right now. We're trying now for the August 29th for the release of this, for it to be the pledge piece first and foremost. And then we're going to be talking with them a little bit later about the possibility of doing that.
And again, something to remember, just so you know, is APO is a full nonprofit organization. So just like PBS, yes, this orchestra is full 501c3. So any of these expenses, of course, I'm going to have to host a pledge drive if we go for that.
I hear you.
But yeah, that is
something. We're all going to want it though. We're all going to want to listen to these songs on the go. Just between us, don't you think Stephen Schwartz should be creating a musical sequel of Gregory Maguire's next novel, Son of a Witch?
Well, if he wants to, Steven's mind he's busy working on so many projects right now. I don't know his other new stuff, but
he's extraordinary. Yeah, he's absolutely extraordinary. And he seems to lend himself well to Gregory Maguire's pieces. So who knows?
Yeah, right. Luke, Frazier, Robert Pullen, thank you so much, you guys. I speak for every Oz fan, every Broadway fan, every music lover. We're so looking forward to Wicked in Concert, a musical celebration of the iconic Broadway score. It airs Sunday, August 29th at 9, 8 Central on PBS. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure.